Hey friends, this is the Scary Movie Project, the podcast where we talk about what else? Scary movies. I'm Tara.
And I guess once again, I'm Matt. And today is very exciting. We're joined by our two new best friends, Justin and Alexia from Trekoff podcast. You can look them up by using that Google feature that's out there in the world now. Searching Trekoff, one word, trekoff.com, Trekoff podcast. You can find it on the World Wide Web, but I could sit here and explain it to you forever and ever, but I'd rather have them talk about it for you. So, Justin, I'm going to jump in right into you, and please take over. Tell us about yourself, and tell us how the wonderful people can listen to you.
Hi, welcome to Not Trekoff. My name is Justin.
My name's Alexia.
And today, we're a guest on your show.
Today, we're guests on your show.
The Trekoff podcast is something that started out, we're on our 9th year, I think now, of doing the show. We've done like 300 episodes. Started out as a Star Trek podcast. It sort of becomes sort of a pop culture, science fight, anything sort of geek related. Usually we have a topic in mind and we often go off that topic. We do, we interview other podcasters like we did with you. We've done celebrity interviews 2 or 3 times a year. Back when you could do it, we did live shows. Our podcast is definitely R-rated, can get very dirty and funny. We used to call ourselves the Dirty Star Trek Comedy Podcast. It's grown into something more than that, I think.
I like that.
But the essence of what it was is still there.
I think it's still there because I think, unfortunately, unlike Justin, who has children's, I cannot seem to do well. I'm going to make my best effort here to not curse and be my generally foul self. But
It sounds like our podcasts are a little parallel on that track.
But I will not succeed probably.
It's all good.
Yeah, so that's where the podcast came from. I don't know if you want us to tell you about ourselves personally. I'm awesome, and that's all. No, Alex is more awesome.
He is. He is very awesome. He's a writer,
Justin,
filmmaker, producer.
Oh, there you go. Tell us about
things.
each other.
Like, he's amazing. I could never list all of his accounts. I don't know how he does it.
I could. No, I'm kidding.
That's that's how I met him, was doing a film. I was doing some local theater, and then someone I was working with in the theater, they were like, hey, we're looking for extras for this, indie horror movie we're doing. And I was like, oh, what's it called? Tell me something about it. And it's Ninjas versus Zombies. I was like, I am there. When? Where? What is it? And I will never forget this moment, because it was the moment that I was like, I think I may really dig this guy. Because of course I was going in as like a little peon extra, a little nobody. And here's the director, and he was doing some makeup on someone. I'll never forget. It was the first night of shooting, for me anyway. Obviously, I don't know. I believe he actually said it was the first night of shooting period for that film. We were in a comic book store, which I was like, yes, win. Because normally if you're on a set someplace, like, you don't have a whole lot to do, but a comic book store, are you kidding? So he was putting some makeup on. He's like, I think he said something like, points to anybody who can tell me what these are. And he was drawing these willow veins. And I was like, he's talking about Buffy. Respect. But of course, contrary to how it might appear, I'm actually really shy. So I was all like quiet and said nothing. And then he was like, nobody? It's like, it's from Buffy. And I was like, I knew it. But like, before I could stop myself, he was like, well, then why didn't you say it? I was like, I don't know. Like, because I'm dumb. But that is how we met. And then many years later, I feel like, 1,000 years after that.
It was like 2. It was like 2.
He went to see a show that I was in because other friends of his were in it. And I
didn't know people in that show. My mom saw it. My mom saw it. She said, Alexia, I think, was an extra in one of your movies. You should see her in this show. And it was a Moliere play, right? It was.
Yes, it was Moliere.
So good.
I can't remember what it's called now. I just remember that I was Irish. I was the Irish maid. He did it like we said it in the 80s. So it was a very fun show. I didn't know that your mom recommended you come see me specifically. That's really cool. And we all went to this little dive that everybody would go to after the shows at this particular theater company. And he was talking, I heard him talking about people who were, he was thinking about doing a podcast for Star Trek. And, he just didn't know anybody who was a fan. And I was sitting there really like, I just had this look on my face. I guess maybe less of a talker in person sometimes and more of a looker. Where I gave him this look like, I'm right here, motherfucker. Sorry. See, I already did it.
There's your one.
There's my one. Oh, I'll try not to say any more.
Chalk it up.
There's I'm right here, mofo. So he's like, what? And I was like, I love Star Trek. What do you mean you don't know anybody that likes Star Trek? And he's like, oh, really? And he like quizzed me as though I was
auditioning you.
Right?
Auditioning
As though I would just be like, oh, I watch Star Trek for reals. But of course he loves Deep Space Nine the most, and that was the one where I felt like they had deviated so much that I couldn't commit to it, and I didn't watch it as much because I am a TOS all the way kind of girl, and it was definitely not that. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And so I couldn't answer some of his DS9 questions, but eventually he was like, "Well, we'll see." And we started. But what's funny is he likes to tell that story with rose-colored glasses. Let him tell them your version of that story. This should be a fun, little exercise.
Ooh,
yes, please.
Yeah.
About which restaurant we were in, because I remember it being Denny's. It's the same story.
It was not, dude. It was not Denny's. It was the
City
something tavern
in Manassas. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, hi, my name's Justin. I like 10 years ago, I wrote and directed a trilogy of films that started with the words Ninjas Versus. So Ninjas versus Zombies, Ninjas versus Vampires, and Ninjas versus Monsters. They were for like 1 second, they were sort of a big deal, like in this area, and then they stopped being that. But it's how I met Alexia, and yes, we did start that conversation that night, and like I knew I wanted to do a podcast. I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, and I was a big fan of the whole Smodcast thing that he was doing at the time, and now playing podcasts and all those things. And so I wanted to kind of start my own. And I had never met in my life. I had never met anyone quite like Alexia, who smart, vivacious. I later found out that she is in person much more shy, but when she like flips that switch, just entertaining, just to be around, just to like sit around. It's a different energy than my own, and yet in her own way, she sort of holds court when those conversations start as well. And I was like, oh, this is the perfect partner for a show. And we just started it up, man. We just were like, let's do it. And by the time we, were in our third year, we were getting a few thousand downloads every month, and we started performing at AwesomeCon, and then we eventually made a movie about our show of Trekoff, the motion picture. That absolutely nothing ever happened with.
But that everybody can watch where?
It has disappeared. Amazon said no, thank you.
Oh wow!
There's something that happened a few years back. Amazon did a purge of some indie horror films, and we were the victims of that. But you can find the DVDs still exist, and you can still find them on Amazon if you want to buy them.
All right.
And so that was it. And now we are on with you guys, which is amazing. Because you guys have an incredible show.
All right. One thing I want to do
you.
that I love that story, and one thing quickly, and we'll do it before we end as well. But please mention any websites or anywhere we can find, and anyone else can find you guys.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I mean, Alexia, I think in that I gave my resume, you also were part of a major part of a project that was sort of a blip on the DC radar for a while. I'd love for you to mention that about Sophie.
Please tell us.
Sure. Yeah, I am really bad at I don't know, just talking about tooting my own horn, so to speak. I guess I don't know. But I did. Yes, I was a part of an amazing local indie film called Sophie Miller, The Quantum Suicide of Sophie Miller, which I had the absolute joy and pleasure of playing Sophie Miller, who is very far from myself, which is always, as you know, as an actor, I'm sure, is always fun to do. And it was written by a friend, and I have been in every possible incarnation of it. It started as a one act, and then we took it to a one act festival, and actually won a bunch of awards, which was really cool. And then we did the movie, and then we did we thought about doing a full play version, and then it wound up becoming a one-woman show version, which we did for Fringe a few years back, which was fairly well received. And so that's, and if you want to check that out, I think the only thing to go is the Quantum Suicide of SophieMiller.com, but I don't know if you can buy it anywhere. We've been trying to get it up, I think, on Amazon, and unfortunately I have no say in that and how that goes. So I think there's been some prodding on my end to be like, hey, we gonna get that up somewhere, maybe? Huh? Yeah. Right. As far as I know, it's only been sent out to the Kickstarter or the Indiegogo people that gave it that level. So but if you guys badger that website enough, maybe you'll get somewhere.
We'll see what we can do. Yeah.
And for my stuff, the Ninjas movies are still out there, and easy to find on Amazon Prime, at least the first two. And then I think Vudu has Ninjas versus Monsters right now. And then I have a film right now on Festival Circuit you can look for the trailer, and you can buy tickets now and then. It's called Cancellation. It's doing really well. It's won a bunch of awards that I'm excited about. And then I'm super secret project right now. I'll tell you guys, it's called The Distanced, which I'm almost done shooting and I'm super excited about. So that's what's going on.
Sweet. All right.
But Cancellation looks really good. I'm really excited to see it.
So I'm going to mention one thing that I just couldn't help, but I have to bring it up. You're talking about ninjas versus zombies. It just reminds me of, if you ever saw the Italian movie Zombie, there is the greatest scene in the history of cinema where a zombie fights a shark. It was so amazing.
Shut the F up.
Shut the front door.
Yeah. That's the Lord for Mystery. That's what he says all the time. Shut the
Alexia,
front door.
go for it. Okay.
It brought
Be your best self.
It brought tears to my eyes because I was like, a zombie fighting a shark. Two things that I love fighting against. This is just
so
amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh my God.
All we need is some freaking lasers.
Yeah, Lucia Fulci did that. Zombie.
Do you do that?
So
if it's any movie that has like the word zombie in it, do you watch it? Because I have there's certain trigger words. Like if it's about vampires, I will watch it. Like, have you ever seen Vampires and Donuts?
Vampires and
No. I'm sorry. It was called Blood and Donuts. Blood and Donuts.
No.
That's the name of the film, but it's a vampire. I was like, I have to watch it. It's a vampire movie.
Right. Yeah. I put the name in it. Yeah. I never heard of that though. Okay.
All right. I'm over here taking notes of movies for us to watch.
And Bit. I just watched Bit not long ago on Vudu. Okay. And it is, oh my God, I loved it because it's basically like a cadre of female vampires, and there's only one rule: never turn a man. They can't handle the power.
Interesting.
So I fucking loved it. See, there I did it again. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I can't be contained. I'm just
you guys.
foul.
Why are you doing something on Trek when you should be doing horror movies? You're so knowledgeable about these things. Come on.
I just knowledgeable about all. Like my whole life was pretty much just spent in front of a television. Like I didn't have friends. Okay. Like Justin had friends. I didn't have those. I had like the TV.
I didn't have those.
I lied. I really didn't have that many, guys.
You did.
One of us here knows that.
No.
We could tell stories. We won't.
We could tell so many stories, and we will not.
I guess we should vaguely reference. We won't do what we did on our show, but Tara and I have known each other a very, very long time. So,
yes.
So if you hear a vague reference to, hey, remember when we were 6? And I'm going to offer this to you guys. And I guess this is the first time I've ever mentioned this out loud because it's not official yet. But my producing partner, best pal, Daniel Ross, is going to be eventually selling these. We haven't put it out that this exists, but there is now a Blu-ray HD recolored remaster of the entire Ninjas vs. trilogy on one Blu-ray that exists. And when we're done with this show, you two, I want you to Facebook message me your addresses, and I will mail each of you a copy of the Ninjas vs. trilogy in HD Blu-ray. And I guess I'll send you one too, Alexia, because you didn't even know that this was happening.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Ooh, we knew at the same time as Alexia. I love it.
How about that?
Right?
So that's coming up soon. So look for that.
Thank you.
Anyhow, enough about us.
Awesome.
Let's talk about you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about us?
Well.
Is that not the greatest?
So
That's only Justin can do.
So I will tell everybody, if we are continuing a conversation here, as we're like however long in by the time I'm getting to tell you this, We are continuing a conversation that we had on Trekoff. Trekoff, if you want to Google it and see the first half of this conversation, or rather listen to the first half of this conversation before you listen to this one. Or, you can do it in reverse order, whatever. I mean, as we learned last time, Justin watched the second Freddy movie first. So we're cool with that.
Yeah, there you go.
We're cool with you watching the second part first, guys, or listening to the second part first. So let's talk a little more about this. So we talked about sort of the difference between these 80s films and these sort of the era of the franchise and the more fun movies, and then going into torture porn and or Justin, you call it something really funny. Was it Gorn?
Did I call it Gorn?
There's definitely another term called Gorno for it. I know that.
Gorno.
I know the Gorn was on Star Trek. He fought.
I know. Yeah, I was gonna say. Wait a minute.
There you go. Gorno. So for Gorn,
on Cetrus 12.
Porno,
don't you remember?
Gorno.
That's right.
Gorno. Oh.
I like Gorno.
So like that's Evil Dead, that's a Gorno. Yes.
No, I wouldn't consider that Gorno.
No, like Saw.
Really? A term for
Hostel.
Saw, Hostel, things. Yeah, movies like that. I think that's a better, more appropriate.
Where the primary value of the movie is seeing this level of horror that you couldn't get anywhere else. That's the primary value of that film.
Yes. So I personally, this is my least favorite kind of horror.
Me
I'm
as well.
Go right up there and say that. Alexia too. So it's it's not my favorite. I don't know. What about you guys, Matt and Justin? Alexia and I have said it's not our favorite.
Yeah. What are the men feeling?
How do the men feel?
If you give me a movie with zero plot and no characters, which is kind of most of the Friday 13th, I'm okay with that if you replace it with violence. I can watch gore all day long. So for me, I'm cool with it. Like I said, I think I mentioned in the earlier episode, Eli Roth is one of my heroes. He's one of my favorite directors. And he feels pretty much the same way I do, that it's just gore, and more gore. And Rob Zombie, his movies too, the same way. So I'm cool with it. I know that a lot of people, they write these reviews. Oh, it's just senseless violence and blah, blah. That's what they've said about
I want to be clear. It's got nothing to do with the senseless violence, at least for me.
Okay.
I think the thing that I don't like about it is actually the psychological aspect of it.
Oh, okay.
Like I think because senseless gore, I'm all for. Like if it's just like no reason, let's blood everywhere.
Okay.
Like exploding heads.
To be other stuff too.
Yeah,
okay.
I think for me, I don't want there to be like the whole for instance, the Saw movies, just for an example.
I love the Saw movies. The Saw movies
where it's about like do either this horrible thing, or this horrible thing. Like
it's basically
the psychology of that part. Just it makes me very uncomfortable, and I don't like it, and I'm no longer enjoying myself then. Right? Like
sure.
it takes me out of the enjoyment.
You're not alone.
The first Saw movie, I think, gets unfairly lumped in with the rest of the Saw movie.
It's genius.
Because the first Saw movie it could almost be a play. I mean, it's
so good.
The gore doesn't really happen to the end.
Nope.
And it's the rest of them certainly but I think that when you talk about torture porn, I don't think you're talking about Gorn, for lack of a better term, Gorno, because it's not about the gore, it's about the pain. And that's the same with Eli Roth.
Good point.
It's about people suffering and what you're getting off on, I guess, on the film. I don't want to say getting off because that's unfair. That's derisive. But like I'll use the term primary value. The primary value of those films is watching people be in pain and sometimes having to inflict the pain on themselves, which makes
I think that's
even
what
more.
I don't like about it. Yeah, I think that's what.
Yeah,
I think that's exactly what turns me off, because I don't like a lot of people shine in front of. I don't have that, and I know people will say yes you do. You never laugh at somebody who's fallen down the stairs, and I really don't. I just see a person who fell down the stairs and got hurt. I can't even when they're laughing about it. I'm all like, oh my gosh, are they okay? They seem like they might be okay. Are you sure you're okay? Are you laughing because you're in pain, or are you? I mean, oh my.
See, I encourage people to laugh if I fall down, but that's okay.
So does my husband.
Look at
but I can't, it's like a thing I can't shut off. I go to worry mode immediately.
I think you can have one of those in a horror. Like for instance, the Evil Dead remake is a great example where it is incredibly gory, and the highlight of that gore is a moment when one of the characters, while possessed, sticks out their tongue and cuts it in half on a razor blade. and
Ooh.
it's rough.
Yeah.
But it's the rest of the film has gore, intensity, violence, but it is the only moment that's quite like that. And I think you can have like one of those to bring you to sort of that gut-wrenching moment, and I'm still with you, and I kind of like it. It's like it can be the one, it's the White House exploding Independence Day. It's like the one thing, like, here, that's the thing, and you have that moment, and the rest you get the other kind of thrill ride. I think once I've had one of those, I'm pretty ready to check out though. I think that after one, it's either got to be more fun. It can be senseless and fun, or there's got to be more character stuff. But I think that watching people hurt that's a hard one for me too.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't expect that from you. You usually, seem to fall on that side. So not know that.
I think the thing I'll say about those is, I enjoy watching them, but I think that for the Saw franchise, the point of those, they're doing them is they're capturing, kidnapping people to do things that have done awful things in their previous life or their current life, I guess, so that they're making them pay for that is kind of the point. And of course, in the Hostel movies, it's a group of the company called Elite Hunting, where these people are basically kidnapped, and people from around the world can pay like $30,000 to go to this place and in a room and basically chop people up for their own amusement. So that's what the points of those are. And that's the plot of the movies, but obviously everyone's view of them is totally different. It's intense. When they do a lot of that, there's a lot of scenes in those movies where they are hard to watch, but just remember.
I don't want you to feel like you have to justify yourself, though, Matt. Like,
no,
like maybe poor Matt is like, so you three are like, oh, I'm just too empathetic. I can't possibly.
No.
And you're like, you're the jerk in the corner is like, bring it on. It's not.
I think that's part of what we were talking about on the other podcast with the idea of ever since 9/11, this has been something that we've wanted to see in our society, because I think it brings us that fear without the danger. So I think it kind of comes from that.
You look at those pictures we saw from those prisons like Abu Ghraib and places like that, when you saw those photos of the way people were treated, and that was real, like you saw that, and then you get to see a movie where they basically do that same thing. Can you imagine? It's crazy watching the movies where these guys are sitting there and their phones just go off like a text message saying, we have a white American woman who we kidnapped and she's yours now they actually bid, and they can bid up to like whatever, $50,000, and you get to go into a room full of tools, and you can slice her head off, you can cut her extremities off, and people pay to do this. And God only knows something like that might exist, but who the hell knows? But if it does, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like the
wouldn't surprise
depth
me.
of human depravity wouldn't surprise me anymore.
If it was real, it would not surprise me.
Like that's I think that speaks a lot to where we are.
There's
as
also
a species.
another movie called A Serbian Film, which I don't know if you guys ever saw that. It's along the same lines. They didn't even release it in a lot of places. It's kind of intense. I had to buy the DVD. It's pretty wild. It's good. I liked it.
Yeah, I have not watched it, but I hear it's rough.
Oh yeah.
I think that Tara's right on when you go, especially immediately post 9/11, because you have the sense of the other, right? So you're in America, you're white, you're upper middle class, you're safe, man. You're good. Yeah. Nothing can happen to you. That's true. Then Wall Street explodes and falls on your head.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not safe. So what do you get? You get horror movies become hostile, where if you're white, upper middle class, no, the other is coming for you. Yeah. Action movies. What happened with action movies? Taken, which is just the action movie version of the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is you're not safe now. You're not safe now. That's the message I keep going. You're not safe now. And I think that's
24.
And because I think that's true. Because I think I think that speaks to the times. I think you're right, because growing up, I don't mind aging myself so much, but growing up like in the 80s, there was I never was worried, right, for my safety. I probably should have been, but I'm like
except for nuclear war. That's what was on my mind at the time.
I had no. I was not on my. Oh, right, totally. But that was not on my brain. But I think that's why I think in the 80s, you've got a lot of this more fun, if you will, horror movie, right? Mm-hmm. Because at least surfacely, I couldn't speak to things that were, under the surface brewing, but like, at least as far as I was aware, like, life was pretty okay here in America. Like, we were living large, and
80s,
so
that was the excess of the 80s, sure.
Yeah, and so that's why you see that in the horror movies. Like, even the horror movies are kind of fun because there's nothing to really be afraid of. like not for realsies.
Yeah.
And then I think that 9/11 comes along, and then it's like, oh, but there are legit things to fear, and maybe we should explore those. And I think we're just sort of seeing it. I think things in general got edgier after that, not just in horror, but kind of across the board.
I agree.
Well, yeah, I think around maybe even a little bit before that, things started getting comedy too. Like we've talked, my husband and I've talked about this with Wayne's World. It was, it was making
I
fun.
love that movie.
Oh,
It's such a good movie, but it was
the best.
poking fun in like a really loving way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
now in comedy, when we poke fun at people, it's a much more acerbic, much more sort of nasty even way sometimes.
oh yeah, I think so.
Sure.
And I think horror movies sort of went through that too. Even the ones that, that have come out now that are more fun. Like think about Tucker and Dale versus Evil,
Oh,
which
good one.
honestly I love,
I
but
do too.
it's a little bit more acerbic. Like
Yeah, it's a little less fun loving than
it's a little less just like we just love everybody, guys.
Well, I think because I think you get to the metatextual once you start really thinking about, you get past the idea of oh I'm not safe. And then you get to the reality of it, not to ever become too political, but to go oh maybe some of this shit was our fault, and then you have that now that becomes the undercurrent, right? So now you have Ready or Not, for instance, which is super fun if you haven't seen it. It's absolutely
I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list.
You absolutely should, but I mean even the trailers indicate that it's it is about. It is about the excesses of white affluence, among other things. It doesn't go into that. It's not a political film in any way, but that's what that is. That's
I think
also
it's
what
kind
happened.
of hard at this point in almost any genre to not see some level of speaking to the times. And
Well,
I think that's
look at
that's the turbulence
Happy
of this
Death Day,
time.
right? That's the plot of Happy Death Day as well. Again, it's about overprivileged white affluence. That's what she is, and then she has to take a step back and go, oh wait, hold on, that's not okay. Get Out takes that from the other point of view,
right?
I think Tucker and Dale versus Evil does that in more of a poking fun of Tucker and Dale, like look at these guys. But I think that there's a level of I hate that the word woke has become what the word woke means. Because there's a moment where it was a cool word where it was, the idea was, hey, you have woken up from being afraid of the other like you were in Saw, and you've now opened your eyes to the
or you've woken up to the fact that you thought everything was equal. Because I think that's how I felt anyway, was because I thought, coming from where I came from, which was sort of middle class, I thought everybody's pretty much got it the same. Like I didn't know that there were people that were living a very different experience of life. And I think that was what I was awoken to, as opposed to that. I mean, the idea that I don't know, like what you were.
I think that's why Candyman resonates again so much, and like it's such a perfect time for the remake of it, because
I'm not sure how I feel. How do you feel about the remake of it, since you said that was a big one for you?
I have two things that to me stick out for it, where one is Peele is doing it, and he's very talented.
He's so great.
And because
I remember the guy who played Candyman, and I felt
Tony
like
Todd, yeah,
nobody could be
He's Kern on Star Trek.
He's coming back for it.
He's amazing.
Oh, is he going to be Candyman?
So says IMDb.
I think so. Yeah. And the other
okay,
part,
well then I'm okay. Then I might be down, because I was like, I don't know how anyone can replace. There's something he has that is both alluring and intriguing and interesting that you don't expect from like your typical. Candyman is similar to like what is the Mary
Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary.
Yeah,
like where she is not as compelled. There's something about him. The way
he's
they did that
very,
film.
As you said, alluring. And
Yes.
I'll tell you a quick story about him. I met Tony Todd at a horror convention. As you do.
Oh, wow.
You meet Tony Todd because he's there at the conventions.
He's at all of them,
yeah, he's at all of them. And I told him the story that I will tell on our Candyman episode. If you guys have heard it yet, you'll hear it. And he leaned into my ear and whispered, "Terrified." in that voice. Oh my God, his breath on my neck. You guys, I got full body chills.
I bet. That's awesome.
Never been so scared and yet so
yes.
allured.
I think yes, and that's what I think it is. Is like, I don't. I think that's the female perspective, right? Because I don't know how does it land for you. Because I feel I'm with you, Tara. Like there was for me, Candyman was, it was scary, but there was something, and of course Virginia Madsen. I mean,
she's great.
She's amazing.
She's so good.
There's like a part of you that's terrified, but at the same time, he's kind of, I don't know, like you want to know his deal.
You're transfixed. You're transfixed.
This guy's deal.
Yeah, it's like you're a deer in the headlights, like, He's almost hypnotic. I think that's the word I want to use.
So hypnotic is exactly the right word. But to answer your question, Alexia, I am very excited for the remake. The original is one of my favorite horror movies, and I'm really excited to see Jordan Peele's take on it. I have liked his other two movies quite a bit.
He's good. The other cool thing
Sorry, my dog just got very excited by that.
I think the other cool thing about the remake is going to be that they shot it in Chicago. Now the Cabrini Green high rise is gone, but the row houses are still there. So they did shoot a bunch of the film in the row houses, so they stuck true to the same places, which is neat.
Oh, that's good to know. Like I like it. So is it? It's not really a remake so much as it is a continuation.
I have heard them say. I think the word was like it is a spiritual
I think he said spiritual sequel. Spiritual sequel.
Okay, because I think I prefer that than the whole. Like that's the like me and Justin have talked about that in general across all genres. Like this propensity we're seeing of all the reboots, all the remakes. And I'm like, I don't like reboots and remakes. The ones that I like are the things that are more like a continuation, and there's a link still to the past of where it began, and I'm okay with that because it's not then shitting on what was.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like that was no good, that's why we got to redo it now because that was crap. Sure. It's more like that was really good and it's a little bit possibly dated now. So let's kind of have some linkage and bring it forward. And that I'm down.
You know what? The thing about all these movies, no matter what remake or sequel or whatever, 7,000 Friday the 13th, the point is you wouldn't have these done if there wasn't interest. So the fact is people want to know more. There's more story. There's always something else you can add to it. That's why they keep making all these. So that's a good thing.
Much like both of our podcasts. So while we're on that note, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us and for having us on Trekoff. It's been really, really fun to get to talk to you guys about this and get your takes on some of the horror genre and some of our favorite movies and just occasionally least favorite movies. And so to our lovely 5 listeners, if you don't already follow our best buds Trekoff, our new buddies, search for Trekoff and follow them now on your podcasting app. It's Trekoff. I believe you guys also have a website we can find you at, right?
Yeah, trekoffpodcast.com. We're there. We have a Facebook page. We have and we'll interact with you on our page. And we, when cons happen again, you'll see us live. We always fill a room in Awesome Con. It's usually got a few hundred people come in. And it's a party, and there are, like I said, hundreds of episodes there to listen to. And it's not just Star Trek if that's not your thing, but if you love Star Trek and you don't mind a little of the sexy talk, and this is sexy talk, it's like this, just like this the whole time.
That's right.
Captain Kirk is so excitingly beautiful. Would you like to make with the love? It's just like that. No, that's not like. I've never done that before.
So now that you know what to expect, guys, now that you know you really have to listen to this, go listen to Trekoff.
The listeners are like, holy shit, hilarious. It is a horror podcast now.
Yeah. And don't forget, everybody, please, if you enjoyed this, if you enjoy our other episodes, hey, even if you don't, rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you are listening.
5 stars.
You like it.
People can find us.
How can you not like them? These people
We're begging you, 5 stars, please.
Listen to me. I don't have to be nice to you.
Heart.
I don't have to be nice to you, listeners. They're the nice ones. Let me tell you something, you lazy bums. Like right now, go on there, man. I know you're like, oh, I'll get to it. Hold on. I've just got to post this thing. No, stop. Go back. Give them the 5 stars. They just gave you like 40 minutes for free. Give it to them.
What more do you really need than that?
Exactly. This is free. What more can you ask for free, guys? And don't forget, send us your movie suggestions, your thoughts on the movies we've watched so far, how much you love Justin's sexy voice.
Oh, no.
You can send those to the Scary Movie Project at gmail.com. So we're going to say goodbye, everybody. I'm going to tell you guys, everybody say bye on count of 3. Ready? Can we do this? 1,
I think so.
2, 3. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Goodbye.